Something has been stirring in a remote corner of our galaxy. Something so unexpected, so unprecedented, that astronomers around the world are quietly rewriting their reports, adjusting their models, and triple-checking data they once believed to be unbreakable. It all began with a star that should have remained silent forever. A star that lived through its violent end, collapsed into a dense, frozen corpse, and settled into the eternal stillness expected of a dead neutron star. Yet somehow, it began to pulse again, not faintly, not gradually, but suddenly, like a heartbeat erupting inside a body long gone cold. Before we dive deeper, take one moment to like this video and subscribe. These cosmic revelations are intensifying, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Now, let's unravel the moment scientists realized they were dealing with something that defies every known rule of astrophysics. For decades, astronomers monitored this former Magnetar, a star believed to have exhausted its magnetic fury and collapsed into a dormant neutron star. It had shown no signs of activity for generations. No pulses, no bursts, no rotation glitches, nothing, a cosmic relic, a gravestone drifting through space, until the instruments caught something. A spike, small, but unmistakably real. The initial burst of energy coming from the star was so weak that the system nearly dismissed it as noise. Obsolete equipment sometimes produces phantom readings, especially when monitoring sources so distant they barely register against cosmic background radiation. But the software flagged this signal not because of its strength, but because of its pattern. It matched the electromagnetic signature of a magnetar flare, and that made no sense at all. Magnetars do not flare after death. They do not reactivate. Their magnetic fields fade into irreversible decay. So the monitoring team rechecked the data, then checked again, and then the second burst arrived. This time, stronger. Definitely not noise. Definitely not a coincidence. The researchers who reviewed the pulse described the moment the reading appeared as spine-chilling, because the energy fingerprint was intentional, structured, not random. Something inside that star had awakened. A dead star had no right to do that. Leading astrophysicists began exchanging encrypted messages, cautious and skeptical. Confirmation came from observatories in Europe, North America, and South Africa. Everyone saw the same thing. A magnetar that should not be alive was behaving as if its magnetic heart had restarted. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a minor anomaly. It was a full-scale reactivation, or something that looked dangerously similar to one. You need to picture what a magnetar actually is to understand the magnitude of this event. A magnetar is one of the most extreme objects the universe can create. A neutron star with a magnetic field a quadrillion times stronger than Earth's. If you brought a magnetar as close as the moon, it would wipe every credit card, every hard drive, every electronic memory on the planet instantly. They are cosmic monsters, silent, invisible, and unimaginably destructive. Now imagine one of these monsters dying, collapsing, and going dark, only for it to suddenly show signs of life again. Researchers proposed natural explanations, but each theory died as fast as it was suggested. A rotational glitch? Impossible. There was no rotation left. Accretion? There was nothing nearby to feed on. Quantum core fracture? No evidence. Every mechanism known to stellar physics failed, unless something new was happening, something no one had ever documented. And then the pattern changed. The first two bursts resembled typical magnetar activity, rare, violent, short-lived. But what came next wasn't violent at all. The pulses became rhythmic, repeating, almost deliberate, like a system calibrating itself. Like gears turning inside the heart of something that should no longer have gears at all. As if the star were trying to stabilize or charge. The data, once fed into specialized models, revealed a disturbing truth: the energy release wasn't random. The pulses increased in duration, intensity, and coherence. They formed microstructures, tiny modulations embedded inside the bursts that resembled sequences. Not exactly a message, but definitely not natural static. Something was reorganizing itself inside the star. Some astrophysicists called it the resurrection effect. Others called it magnetar memory. But none of the names truly fit. Because nothing about this event fits. The star's rotation, previously undetectable, suddenly accelerated. A celestial corpse should not speed up. There should be no mechanism for that, unless an external force was interacting with it. Some theories grew bold, too bold for official publication. Dark matter seed interaction, primordial black hole grazing, exotic particle ignition, quantum superfluid phase reversal. Each one sounds like something ripped from speculative physics. But the scientists proposing them weren't writing fiction. They were interpreting real data. The star wasn't just waking up. It was changing, transforming, and perhaps the most unsettling detail is this. The star's new magnetic field configuration is unstable. Unstable fields don't persist. They collapse, they rupture, or they transition into something else. Something unknown. One researcher described the readings as a cocoon tearing open. Another said it looked like a second birth. A third compared it to a system rebooting after an impossibly long shutdown. What kind of stellar object reboots itself? At this point, the scientific community began combing through ancient sky records, not out of superstition, but because they suspected this phenomenon might not be unique. And the parallels were disturbing. Records from ancient China describe a silent star that returned with terrifying brightness centuries after disappearing. Babylonian clay tablets mention a death star that breathed again. Mayan calendars refer to the sleeping eye that reopened. Myths? Maybe. Coincidences? Possibly. Or early observations of what we are detecting with modern instruments right now. And if this has happened before, the next question becomes almost too heavy to ask. What happened afterward? Before continuing, take 1 second to subscribe and like this video, because what you are about to hear next is something even the researchers hesitate to discuss publicly. The star's magnetic poles have shifted. Not slightly, drastically. Polar shifts on neutron stars are cataclysmic events. They do not happen without immense external influence. Something is exerting force on this object. Something invisible, something massive. One model simulated the conditions required to produce the observed effects. The result stunned the team. The star would need to be interacting with something possessing gravitational influence far denser than anything in its vicinity. Something small, something compact, something ancient, but the simulations also suggested another possibility, one even more disturbing. The star might be undergoing a metamorphosis. Not a simple reactivation, not a magnetic shift, a full transformation into a new class of object, one that astrophysics has not yet defined. A stellar chrysalis opening, a cosmic machine restarting, a relic awakening after eons of silence. Whatever it is, the energy readings are clear. This is not the end of the event. It is the beginning, and the next stage may be far more violent. Scientists knew the reactivation of the dead Magnetar was extraordinary, but no one expected what came next. As the pulses continued, the star began releasing bursts of energy that didn't match any stellar event ever catalogued. These were not gamma-ray bursts, not radio pulses, not X-ray flares, though they contained traces of all three. They were something new, a hybrid phenomenon with a structure so precise it looked engineered, a cosmic phenomenon behaving with the complexity of a machine. One of the first shocks came from a deep space array in Australia. Their instruments recorded a burst containing modulations separated by exact mathematical intervals. Nature rarely deals in perfect precision. Something in the star was operating with a sense of order, almost like protocol. The team recalibrated, reanalyzed, confirmed again. The pattern wasn't random, but the question that kept vibrating at the edges of every researcher's mind was this: who, or what, is creating the order? If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because the next part is what forced several observatories to discreetly request classified-level communication channels. The star changed color. It began emitting a strange, ghostly blue radiation never previously associated with magnetars or neutron stars. This glow wasn't visible to the naked eye, but instruments captured it clearly. The spectrum contained elements of Cherenkov radiation, the kind created when particles move faster than light in a medium. Not faster than light itself, but fast enough to warp the surrounding space. Stars do not do this. Dead stars certainly do not do this. Researchers posited that some kind of exotic plasma was being formed, something that required temperatures and densities exceeding anything in known astrophysics. Meaning the star wasn't only waking up, it was transforming into a new kind of cosmic engine. And then came the shockwave. A low-frequency gravitational tremor rippled through nearby space, subtle yet powerful enough to nudge an asteroid several kilometers off its trajectory. The shift was small, but measurable. Something near the star was exerting influence on the surrounding environment. When gravitational waves occur, they usually announce the collision of black holes or neutron stars. But this wasn't a collision. It was something internal. Something inside the star was pushing outward. This is where the data gets frightening. The gravitational tremor repeated, then repeated again, not randomly, rhythmically, as if the star were beating, as if something inside it had a pulse. Imagine a cocoon expanding from the inside with every heartbeat. That is what the data shows. A young researcher in Germany described the tremor sequence as a gestation pattern. She was half joking, until she realized her model fit the data better than anything else proposed. Something was maturing inside the corpse of the star. The question no one dares put in writing is simple: what is being born? You might think this sounds exaggerated, maybe even cinematic, but every detail comes from real physical behavior: bursts, pulses, oscillations, frequency clusters, energy reconstruction. The phenomena themselves are real. The interpretation, however, that is where the fear begins. Let's go deeper. 3 days into the reactivation period, the star's rotation increased again. Rapid rotation in a magnetar is catastrophic. The crust cracks, the interior shifts, entire layers rearrange, but in this case, the star sped up smoothly, as if guided, as if controlled, as if responding to an external command. Multiple clusters of exotic particles began emerging, particles theorized in quantum physics but never observed. They appeared, decayed, reappeared, as if they were byproducts of some internal process. Some researchers suggested the star had entered a quantum fluctuation phase, a temporary state where classical physics breaks down, allowing transitions to impossible conditions. Others whispered a different word: metamorphosis. If you haven't liked this video yet, now is the moment, because the next revelation is so unsettling it could redefine the meaning of alive in the cosmos. Something left the star. Instruments captured a thin filament of plasma ejecting from the magnetar's pole. A highly focused, razor-thin stream of exotic particles that pierced space like a laser. But here's what makes it terrifying. The beam was consistent, narrow, and persistent for several minutes. Magnetars occasionally produce jets, but nothing like this. Nothing so stable, nothing so controlled. The beam struck a dust cloud several light years away. The particles reacted instantly, creating a bloom of light that expanded like a slow explosion, a silent, ethereal fireball. When astronomers reconstructed the event, they realized the beam had carved a perfect linear path through the dust cloud. Perfect, straight, unwavering. Nature doesn't draw straight lines. Machines do. Theories began to shift from conventional astrophysics to something far more exotic. Some proposed the star was forming a quark star, an ultra-dense object theorized but never confirmed. Others believed the magnetar was collapsing into a pre-black hole state, where quantum instabilities create impossible behaviors. But one theory, whispered among the most daring astrophysicists, spread like a ghost story. The star might be shedding its outer layers, like an insect shedding its cocoon, preparing to reveal what lies beneath. If that is true, then the dead star reactivating is merely the surface-level phenomenon of something much deeper, much older, much more powerful. Now comes the part the agencies have not acknowledged publicly, though multiple independent observatories confirmed it. After the particle beam event, the star began vibrating, emitting low, periodic pulses of gravitational noise. When analyzed, these pulses formed a pattern of ratios that match cosmological constants. One theoretical physicist said, off the record, "It's as if the star is reciting the structure of the universe." Another described it differently: "It's communicating, but not with us." We may be witnessing a star entering a phase of existence humans have no language for. A star becoming something other than a star. A star awakening into a form of cosmic intelligence embedded in the laws of physics themselves. The next major event occurred 18 hours later. The magnetar's magnetic field inverted. Polarity reversal has never been observed on a neutron star. It would require unimaginable energy. Energy so vast it would exceed the original supernova that created the star. But the readings were clear. The poles swapped instantaneously, like flipping a switch. And when they did, a massive ring of radiation burst from the star, expanding outward in a shockwave. This ring wasn't random, it was symmetrical, perfectly circular, another unnatural shape, a shape nature doesn't create by accident. Some researchers began calling the object a post-magnetar. Others called it a magnetic chrysalis. But the name that caught the most attention came from a professor in Tokyo: the awakening core. When he presented his model, he described it like this: the star is not reactivating. It is revealing its second stage. A dormant process is resuming after millions of years. This is not death reversed. This is evolution. His model shows something extraordinary. The star's density is decreasing, not increasing, meaning something is expanding inside it, forcing the crust outward, preparing to reshape the entire object into something new. And if the star is transforming, what will it become? A new type of cosmic engine? A new kind of gravitational structure? A self-sustaining quantum object? A relic from the early universe finally completing a cycle? Or something we don't have words for? Before we close, take a second to subscribe and tap like, not just to support the channel, but to stay connected as more data emerges. Because the event is still happening. The star is still changing. And every new reading reveals something stranger, something deeper, something more unsettling. What we are witnessing may be the first transformation of a stellar corpse into a new cosmic life form. Not alive like a creature. Not alive like a plant. Alive in a way only the universe could define. A form of existence we were never meant to see, yet now cannot unsee. The star is no longer dead. It is no longer a star. It is becoming something else. And whatever that something is, it's only just beginning.